In certain places across Scotland, they've been making a few tweaks and modifications to some of the roads, like removing a section of the central reservation. In the case of Ayr, a town situated to the southwest of Glasgow, they made some road modifications in 2022 as part of a multi-million-pound project, but the question is why? The answer is found in the hills a short distance from Ayr, and it's this: wind farms. Scotland is leading the way when it comes to wind turbine technology, with one report suggesting that 98% of Scotland's electricity is generated via wind farms. And why not? Scotland is the perfect location to install a wind farm. There's lots of winds, there's hills and high ground. It's perfect, except for the hills and high ground, which are a bit of a problem when it comes to transporting and installing your wind turbine. Sure, once you're all up and running, it's great, but you've got to get it there, and the roads in this area of Scotland are best described as suboptimal. Here's the problem: a company called Vattenfall wanted to install a wind farm in the hills near Dalmellington. To do so, they needed to ship in around 450 components that would be used to build all of the wind turbines. When I say components, I'm not talking a few PCBs, this is big stuff, but luckily the Port of Ayr sits 15 miles up the road, so happy days, they set about shipping in these large components. Let's talk about those components for a moment. Like I said, it's not just a few crates of stuff, it's 64 metre long wind turbine blades, 150 of them, and several metre long tower sections, again 150 of them, and of course the hubs, which weigh 63 tonnes each, and you'll be wanting 50 of those. Along with a host of other parts, you can see that this wasn't a job for every. So the problem is transporting all of these large components from the port here to the build site here along a road network that was never designed to accommodate such loads. How do we fix this? Well, to start, you need a big truck, so that's what they got. The transport vehicles were a combination of 6, 7 and 8 axle trailers, 2 tower transport clamp trailers and 3 super wing carriers. I don't know what any of that means, I just copied it off the transport company's website, but it's a big bloody truck is what it is. So with the truck sorted, they then set to working out the best route to take, and having assessed their options, they decided that the trucks would leave the port and head to the A77 via the A719, and then head south before turning left onto the A713, which would take them down to the wind farm site. There was still the slight issue of the crap Scottish roads though. Whilst they did their best with the route selection, there were always going to be some obstacles along the way, and these obstacles resulted in a £67 million road modification project that would see certain parts of the road widened and street furniture removed in order to allow these massive trucks and their cargo to get through. Despite the dock's location, very little had to be done at the start of the route, and they somehow managed to squeeze the trucks through and onto the A719, but a short distance up sits the Whitlets roundabout. Here's how it looked before any modifications were made, and the problem is this bit of central reservation here. In order for the massive trucks to make it round the roundabout, they need to start their turn as far over to the right as they can to allow enough space for the cargo to follow through behind them. But the central reservation gets in the way here and the gap's too small, so they simply cut a chunk out of the central reservation, increasing the size of the gap, and whilst it may not look like much, it's just enough for the trucks to get through. The real fun comes a bit later along the journey when the trucks turn onto the A713. Here's what a normal A road looks like. And here's what a normal A road looks like in Scotland. It's far from ideal if you want to be transporting 64 metre long wind turbine blades, and indeed, everybody thought the same, so several modifications have been made to this road that you probably wouldn't even notice whilst driving along. The first job was to strengthen the 1950s built Bonestone Bridge. It was closed over a 5-week period to allow for the works to be carried out, which involved strengthening the structure with carbon fibre, so it's now a racing bridge. The next issue to overcome was the junction with Craig's Road, where the A713 makes a sharp turn to the right. There's no way you're getting a wind turbine blade round there, so they set about fixing the turn by widening the carriageway, adding a hard surface for additional space, and completely removing a traffic island because it was in the way. A short distance from there, and the A713 crosses over the now abandoned Ayr to Dalmellington Railway. It's not clear as to whether the bridge needed strengthening works or not, but they did need to widen the carriageway. Because the turn is to the left, like at the Whitlets roundabout, the trucks need to be as far over to the right as they can in order to fit their cargo round. So the road was widened, and like at the Craig's Road junction, they installed some additional hard surface on the appropriate side. I'm saying hard surface because it's not road or tarmac, I don't know what the technical term is. On the other side of Dalmellington is the entrance to the wind farm, but just before you get there is a bridge, which in itself isn't too much of a problem. But the odd angles of the road on either side make it just too small of a gap to fit through, so the road had to be widened by an annoyingly small amount. There was no other way around it. You could of course replace the entire bridge, but that was going to be far too much hassle and more importantly far too much money. So after £67 million worth of minor road modifications and the destruction of over 2,000 acres of forest, the creation of the South Kyle wind farm was made possible. It generates 240 megawatts of energy across 50 turbines, which is enough to power 190,000 homes. Of course, the South Kyle wind farm is just one of many wind farms across Scotland that between them so far have replaced 16 million trees. Isn't green energy fantastic? Thanks for watching.